So let's get started since it's a Zoom only meeting. Need to take a poll a roll call to see who's present. Erwin,
Yep, present.
Cynthia,
Present.
and Vince, I'm present. So we are convened. And the first thing on the agenda is the next meetings, specifically May and June at this point. And does anybody have any preferences? I think we've been trying to go for Mondays in the past.
Oh, that's fine.
So last time we picked the 20th of May. Does that still work for everybody? We picked 3 to 4:30 on Monday, the 20th. The 13th is Carlisle's town meeting.
Yep, we went, yep.
That's good for me.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll confirm that, the 20th.
If we could just go ahead and post it, that would be great.
Okay, June,
We have the 17th is what we had picked.
Sounds good.
And that's typically the awards.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Julie, you weren't here last year for that, but we typically do an awards presentation for the staff. I'll share the video with you from last year.
Okay, great.
All right, that sounds good. We can post 2 meetings, then we'll know we're gonna do them, and then we just need to post by the agenda by the prior Thursday. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so, what typically also happens after town meeting, so this would, apply to May, is that it's typically, the turnover for officers on the committee. So I'm, wondering at this point if there's anybody that's interested in chairing PEG for the coming year, and then we're going to have a clerk as well. I would prefer not to be chair for the coming year.
I really can't chair. I'm a voting member, but I'm not. I shouldn't be.
And you have two
I've
other.
already, I've
Sorry.
already expressed that I can't do it. I've got a grandchild coming and I'm starting a new business, so it's not the right time for me.
Cynthia, what's happening for you as far as the school committee is concerned?
I would need to be reappointed. I think it's an annual appointment. The liaison role.
Is that something that's competitive at this point, or, is it something that, you're willing to do?
No, I'd be willing to do it, sure.
So Vince, perhaps we can talk to the other 2 members too to find out their interest in one or the other of those roles.
Yes, yeah, I know. Yeah, you might reach out. I, definitely will get hold of Megan and Corey. They both have more specialized interests, and one of the concerns obviously has been that, I guess because of family commitments, they've had a harder time attending.
What terms are up?
Well, it's just we usually reorganize after town meeting. All the committees do. So
No, but
hearing clerk,
the members are appointed for 3-year terms, correct?
right?
Yes.
Anybody know where we are with those?
Corey is up next year. She
Okay,
has a year to go. And this is her first, well, that's true of both of them. It's both their first 3-year terms. They could, in theory, go on, for another 3 years after that.
okay. And we're fully staffed? We have 5 members, is that right?
Yes, we do currently.
Okay,
We have had some other expressions of interest in the past that, a couple that we've actually turned down, the people that were interested, but, that's, I guess, a bridge we can come to depending what we find out here.
okay.
So this is what I have here. It looks like we need to add Irwin, and so some of these dates might be suspect.
Mm-hmm.
But Cynthia, it looks like your appointment goes through 2025.
I thought it was usually annual, but we don't need to worry about it right now.
Okay.
Oh, 2025, that's correct. So yes,
Yeah,
that's the end of my term anyway. So yeah,
okay, that makes sense.
that's good.
So we do need to circle back, Vince, on just figuring out this. I can email Shannon and just inquire, or maybe the clerk's office is a better one to ask about these dates in here.
That'd be great. Thank you.
It does show vacancies on something, but I know Irwin is one, but is the other one, Nancy Pierce was the Carlisle liaison?
She's just a lady. Yeah.
No, actually, Carlin, do you know anything about our official Carlisle rep?
Well, it's always been the town administrator from the town of Carlisle. So Ryan McLean, but I'm not sure he knows it.
Can we fine him for delinquency?
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
He has been on the mailing list, you know, so the distribution list, he is continually on the distribution list.
But is he a voting member, Carlin?
No, he's not.
Okay.
There was one time when we first started out, he appointed Christine Lear
Mhm.
as the Carlisle representative.
Yeah,
And then when she resigned, it reverted back to the prior fellow who was the town administrator, then Ryan McLean inherited us.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess really Nancy has always been interested, partly because she's still, a frequent contributor to the Mosquito,
Mhm.
but, she just seems to have a broad interest in town affairs anyway in Carlisle. All right, let's move on here. So Comcast contract negotiation, minutes. Yeah, so I've distributed 2 sets of minutes and for January and March. It turned out that the February meeting has not been posted on YouTube as far as I can find. And Julie, I think the reason why is that that was one of the ones where we had an executive session and that had to be edited out. I believe I noticed in the summary that I get from Shannon, which is independent of that, the meetings where there has been an executive sessions, I see that it was identified there in February. And it, I think as long as we can just get the video for the February meeting, I have wanted really to get together with Megan, to see if she can get more involved actually with the minutes keeping. It just, she's been kind of MIA for so many meetings that I've, just kind of done it myself, just because
Okay.
I've been doing it in the past. But, I would like to get her more involved. Or not, depending on, what kind of a commitment she feels she can make.
And what was the date? I'm just trying to find it here.
Oh, it's the
February 28th?
February posting to YouTube. Yeah, let me see. I don't have the date in front of me here.
If it was February, it was probably February 28th.
Okay, that sounds right.
And you said the video's not up?
I couldn't find it.
Is that the one where there was no quorum, so you didn't have a meeting?
Let me see. We rescheduled that one. You may be right. Because then when we rescheduled for March, remember there was the meeting where we didn't want to, have 2 meetings within a period of 2 or 3 weeks of each other, which didn't make sense.
Mhm.
I'll look at that again. Well, no, the reason that we did have a meeting is because I got the summary from Shannon.
Okay,
Uh,
I'll look into it.
Yeah, so, yeah, because that summary is independent of YouTube, really. She's just been sending me, the AI companion summary that it's been generating on YouTube. Oh, by the way, Jason, Zoom has just introduced a whole new bundle of AI features. There doesn't seem to be any, price change yet, but it looks like they're, going all out into, making it as full featured as possible, in terms of the Zoom AI ability. And I assume that means, that they're competing with, Microsoft in particular. I don't know if there's anybody else that's going for that particular market segment, as far as any kind of corporate meetings are concerned. So moving on, next step, Comcast contract negotiations.
I can take that.
What, are we going to approve minutes? Or no?
We can, what I prefer to do is hold off until the next meeting. It's getting late, I wanted to keep them up to date, but one thing that I did fairly recently, I had a fairly long discussion with Akari Tari and kind of updated her on what appeared to be the movement of the automated minutes to become something really useful. And they certainly have gotten better and more complete, particularly in things like some of the summaries and things that would be quite useful. So what we discussed is maybe with your collaboration, Jason, is getting together sometime fairly soon after town meeting, to kind of assess the status of what it was going to be going forward, because it does overlap with some other, things that are on basically mobile platforms, particularly cell phones. For instance, several of the articles are related to remote voting or, voting in 2 different locations, David Allen's article, for instance. And so there's several things that, are becoming kind of more prominent. Particularly, everybody seems to keep, referring to a couple of other towns now that have been, fairly, forward thinking along these lines. I think Wayland comes up frequently
Mhm.
for a lot of other people in town, for instance. And the other thing that I've seen in looking at some minutes, there's one of the West Concord committees, I don't remember which one it is right now, just from the characteristics of the meetings, it looks like they're using probably some Zoom companion to produce some of their minutes. And they can do that, just by once they have the YouTube video posted, they can do that with Google Gemini, for instance, or with the Microsoft equivalent. They actually do a pretty good job at this point. So yes, yeah, as far as reviewing the minutes, if we can hold off till the next meeting.
Okay, I have a lot of corrections for the March minutes.
Yeah, take a look at it and, you know,
No, I know, but I think it should be something that other members see. We'll have to review them at that next meeting and then hold off another meeting to have all the updates made.
right.
Okay, that's,
Yeah, I don't know if you get a chance to look at that also. Okay, Jason?
Yeah, sure. So since we last met, we've had two more negotiating sessions with Comcast, one on the 19th of March and one on the 17th of April. And our next one is scheduled on May 15th. So we continue to meet generally with both Greg Franks and Kathy Maloney from Comcast. They've generally centered on the elements that you can see in our current contract, which are things like number of channels and resolution of channels, payments, capital payments, and then other elements requested during our information sessions and surveys to town, things like electronic programming guide. Also language inside the contract, we started negotiating using our current agreement, and so we're just trying to look at other agreements and see what kind of language is out there. Generally it's an easier battle to get things added that have been already approved in other communities. So we're doing a lot of that. On the April 1st select board meeting, they approved a 120-day extension which is basically a letter that you send to the DTC. I've got my light plant hat on when I say DPU. And so the DTC requires us to respond within a certain amount of time from when a formal offer is submitted. We got our formal offer late December. So that basically sets the clock and says that by the time our current agreement is expired, we need to accept or reject that offer. Rejecting the offer kind of leaves you without an agreement. So essentially what you do is you don't extend the current agreement, because in Massachusetts you cannot have an agreement for more than 10 years. But what you can do is request from the DTC an extension of the preliminary denial. So that's what we've done. So that buys us about 4 more months of negotiating time. We can continue to do this. You don't just get one shot at the extension. If we need more extensions, we'll get that. Hopefully we've got a few more meetings in that period of time. We can resolve the differences, and then we can bring something to the select board that we recommend. If not, we'll get another extension. We originally were looking for a 6-month extension, but the DTC only allows 120-day renewals of that, or extensions of that preliminary denial. So at this point, we basically, what our cadence is, roughly every 3 weeks to meet with them. So Terry and Sue and I will meet outside of that schedule to kind of discuss our goals. We'll send messages to Comcast with enough time for them to prepare, do some research, maybe send back some information promised in the last meeting. Then we meet internally before the negotiation session. We have the negotiation session. We meet after the negotiation session. So it's a lot of time talking about this. And I think we've really found the areas that we need to focus on. And so we just continue to chip away at those. And we have kind of a tracker that lists outstanding discrepancies or issues that we have. And then we're trying to get through the big ones first, and then we'll settle the little ones and maybe look at it a little more holistically going forward. So that's kind of been our approach, but it's overall a positive process. And, I think Sue's expertise is incredibly valuable here with her past Massachusetts experience and her just vast PEG knowledge. It's funny, Julie was sending me some information about an award that the Alliance for Community Media has, and it's named after Sue. I mean, she's a rock star in the industry, so it's great to have her knowledge and background in these meetings. That's kind of my update.
Are there any new terms that have come up, or, is there any possibility that Comcast is going to raise anything, or is, there anything besides what's currently on the table?
Yeah, definitely can't talk about that in open session. I'd say until we, agree on the terms, generally, it's hard to talk about it in open session. But, when I mentioned holistically, I think that, sometimes when you figure out what the sticking points are, you can kind of lump them all together and create a menu, if you will. So we're kind of at that point where we're looking at things and their impact on the total impact, may say dollar value or things that are sticking. But yeah, I can't really comment on new things or amounts of things in open session.
Has the Carlisle agreement finally happened?
Oh yeah, yep, that's happened. You can find that on the DTC's website.
Okay. What was the final hangup on that?
That's a good question. I'll just speak broadly here in open session to say that, number one, Carlisle had 3 different town administrators during the time that they were negotiating the contract. So that definitely takes time to get up to speed with that, and it's probably not your priority on day one when you become town administrator. But separate from that, I think that, Sue was involved in that, and it's hard for me to comment because I don't know what was public and what was from Sue, and I can't, speak about things that I'm not sure were public in open session. But I know that it did stretch on a while. They had several renewals or extensions of the request for preliminary denial.
Erwin, do you have any other thoughts or comments on the negotiations?
No, because I'm not too privy to it, so I'm not, no.
Cynthia? Is there any,
Good.
was just trying to remember what, Carlisle is doing, since there's kind of an overlap. We're kind of joined at the hip with Carlisle on, a number of different issues. If there, is anything that, is particularly relevant to Concord and what Carlisle has in their agreement at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that Carlisle negotiated 2 HD channels and 1 SD channel. And lacking a head end, that impact will probably be seen at the Concord head end here at MMN Studios. So I think they were projecting 18 months from Carlisle's contract resolution until those changes would be made.
How many do they have now?
Currently, both towns have 3 channels in SD, is what the contracts say.
But in fact, since they've been kind of piggybacking on Concord, it doesn't mean we combine them separately, right? So we don't have 6.
Correct.
But what will change then with the HD? Is that something that Concord can kind of add to cumulatively, or what?
Difficult to say in open session. So all I can say is that Carlisle, in their agreement that's public, has 2 HD and 1 SD channel. Happy to schedule an executive session next time. We can talk more about it.
Yeah.
If you'd like.
Yeah, that'll probably be worthwhile.
I think we'll have had our next meeting by that time, so I might have more to report too.
Okay, so I guess Jason, and Julie, we're moving on to the MMN broadband update.
Yeah, sure. I can start. I see Julie's on the phone. I can just give a couple updates. Right now it's really all about town meeting. We have 2, 3, 4 days of town meeting coming up. We've got 3 days in Concord, we know, next Monday through Wednesday, and then we have Carlisle's is the 13th of May. So right now we've got all of the equipment in the studio configured as if we were in the gymnasium ready for town meeting. We've had 3 town meeting preparation sessions with the moderator, with town staff, with public safety, with the school representatives to kind of go over planning. The RFP for services for audio video services during town meeting has been awarded to Thistle, who was the provider last year. So our team at MMN has had a pre-meeting with them. They've come on site, going over logistics and timing. It looks like everything is going to be loaded on Sunday of this week to get ready. And then it's going to be pretty much a scramble once school gets out on Monday to get everything ready for all the check-ins and our equipment set up and running. But I mean, right now, everything is set up in the studio. So all of our tables have wheels. We just basically wheel it in, and then it's setting up all the cameras. They've got fiber in the building and in the auditorium that we will use to get back to all of our equipment. The moderator is not opening the auditorium unless we fill the capacity of the gymnasium this year, which is kind of a new change. In the past, people could go either place, or we originally, back in COVID days, we used the auditorium for mask required, and the gymnasium was mask optional. So the auditorium is not opening unless we reach capacity, which will make it simpler. You know, we typically expect numbers to dwindle. So if we don't have to open it on day 1, we probably won't have to open it for the whole thing. But the wild card here is that the MBTA zoning community is going to start off on night 2, and we have a special town meeting on night 3. So even with that, there's still some variability, but we'll be ready. We'll have the auditorium fully wired. We'll have communications, microphones, tables. We have deputy moderator. We have deputy clerk. Like all the people are lined up. So you know, our hope, for simplicity's sake and for personnel wise, is that we stick to one room, but we're ready for the auditorium. We have the listening assisted devices ready to go for town meeting in both rooms. We have plenty of check-in stations for people. We have printed materials that are ready and or printing, you know, this week. And we have plenty of staff coming in. It's all hands on deck. So we've got all of our videographers going to come in, cover the event, and this will be Julie's first time meeting, so it'll be pretty exciting. I'm sure she'll be sick of it by the end, but it's a fun time. It's great to work alongside a team for a common goal like that. And yeah, so Julie, do you have anything else to add that I didn't cover about town meeting for Concord?
No, just that we have been leading up to it. We've been filming and posting to YouTube all of the hearings leading up to it. And then, no, I think Jason covered everything about town meeting. We've been testing our equipment, working with Thistle Productions, and we feel like we're ready to go.
That's
Jason,
great.
are the clickers ready? I'm just kidding.
What'd you say?
Clickers.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
clicker.
clickers.
This time, maybe next time. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we cover Carlisle's meetings, and they've had the clickers now for a couple meetings, and it was interesting to watch the rollout because the very first time there's a lot of explanation and presentation, and everybody gets to test it and try it, and you're thinking to yourself, this is a lot of time we're spending on, you know, building up the confidence of the clicker, but it really does go pretty fast once you've got it down. And I'd say that the last meeting was faster because of the clickers. So
Right.
eventually we'll see how those conversations play out in Concord.
We'll see.
I just have a late breaking update from Donna, our communications manager, who said she's fixed the link, Erwin, on the
Okay.
on the town report. And she
That
said
was
that
fast.
you can get the Eagle Eye Award because it's been
Yeah.
for a week. Nobody's mentioned that yet. So
All right. Get a prize.
So we have the Carlisle Town Meeting on the 13th of May, and you know, probably right after the Concord Town Meeting is broken down, we'll start really getting in gear with that. We usually have a lot of conversations with the moderator, who's the point person for arranging our coverage there. We work closely with Ryan, the town administrator, have a good working relationship with him and his team. So we'll have similarly all hands on deck for that event and move our things into the that space. We usually can do it during the day or a little bit in the afternoon, and it's a simpler setup. We have fewer cameras. So I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras for that setup. And yeah, so again, that'll be another exciting night. Hopefully it's one night. I don't know if there's a crazy warrant this year, but I haven't looked at it, but we're ready for the Carlisle meeting as well.
I don't know if they have,
Is there any,
they're
Go ahead.
supposed to be, they're an MBTA community, but I don't know if there's anything on the warrant about it.
I know I haven't heard that conversation come out of them there, but they abut Concord and Concord has a station. And if you're in a butter, you're an MBTA community. So
Exactly.
Erwin, what were you gonna say?
is there any cost to M&N for any of this, or is this all covered by the town?
So MMN pays for all of this. Carlisle, through our agreement with Carlisle, they pay both a flat fee each month plus hourly coverage. So for an event like this, it's a pretty big bill because of the number of staff involved and the duration of the event. Concord does not receive a bill for theirs.
Right, but like, the Thistle people,
Oh,
all
yeah.
that is covered by the town. Obviously, anything related to us is us, yeah,
Yep, the town covers a lot of costs associated with town meetings.
yeah, I can imagine.
For the posting of all the documents, the printing,
Yeah.
the Thistle. Yep, it's a big operation, and all the town covers all that. All we do is our equipment and our people and
Sure.
the coverage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Carlisle doesn't have another company come in, right?
No, well, they do have that gentleman, but I don't know if he works for the schools or volunteers or whatever. But they do have a sound guy who's there. They have the clicker people in one spot. They have a sound guy who runs around and works the event. But I don't know if he's a municipal employee or somebody. I'm not sure who. Do you know who he is, Julie? That guy.
No.
You only went there once. It was your first day.
Yeah.
It was Julie's first day at their last town meeting. So
Yeah.
I told her to get out early and didn't want her
Yeah.
to stick around.
Okay.
But we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah.
There
We're actually going there on, they asked us to film a town meeting preview video for them. Where they're gonna, where Ryan and then a couple of other people on staff or on committees will be speaking to the camera and reading all of the articles,
Oh.
one after the other, and then we'll make one video and then we'll post that. So we're gonna be filming that, starting to film that on Friday.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie, do you have any other MMN updates you'd like to give in this section?
Our fifth graders are continuing to do their podcast. They're adorable. Very enthusiastic group. They were in here last week.
Good.
And then, the other thing that I've been working on with Jason is Zoom training, specifically Zoom bomb training, that we're going to be rolling out soon, teaching people who have Zoom licenses how to best handle a difficult situation when you're getting bombed. So I'm working with Jason and Chris and Amalia on that. Building a PowerPoint.
Mhm. I'm just curious, how important is it to have your Zoom client be the latest if you're running the client? Is that one important factor?
I mean, I think if the host has a relatively recent version, you're all set. It's not as important for the members who join the meeting as it is for the host to just have. I think they continually streamline and the security features and make it easier. I
Yep.
actually upgraded and they've totally redone the user interface. So all the buttons have moved. The security button isn't where it was. So Julie, good luck.
I'm gonna update mine right now.
Yeah.
Zoom
The-
workplace,
The
right?
most important thing that we found is really just making sure people understand that even without a webinar, you can prevent people from unmuting themselves, from turning on their video, from sharing their screen. And if you don't know anybody in a meeting, you really should take those precautions just to be safe. And that's what we do. I think the other tough thing that we have is we're starting with people who have Zoom licenses, but if I weren't at this meeting, I wouldn't have been able to claim host and there would have been no host here. You guys could have met, it would have recorded, it would have been great. But if you had had an incident, there would be no way to recover. You all would have had to just
Mhm.
leave and abandon the meeting. And
Right.
so we're trying to tackle that issue next. Because I mean, the town is already spending over $7,000 a year on Zoom licenses.
Mhm.
So it's not, financially feasible to give another 40 Zoom licenses and see that balloon
Right.
to $30,000 or $40,000 a year. But we still have to find a way to allow the chair to be able to, stop a Zoom bomb or somebody on the meeting to stop a Zoom bomb. And I can tell you, as I run the light plant light board meetings, and I end up talking about 80% of the time, and I'm the one like letting
Mhm.
people in and unmuting, muting people, and it is
Right.
very difficult and distracting to do all of those things while you're trying to speak and give presentations. So it's a challenge, unfortunately.
So who is the host of this Zoom that we're on right now?
I am now. So what happens is on these meetings where there isn't necessarily a dedicated staff liaison, Shannon would create the Zoom link, and Shannon is essentially the host. So as we all show up, nobody is the host, but because I'm the Zoom admin, I can go in and find Shannon's host key. So then I can
Okay.
claim host button, enter the host key, and then I can become the host. And
Right.
you know, unfortunately, the host key doesn't rotate; it's a fixed number. So once you have it, you can become the host of any meeting of that person. So it's not something that you can just give to like every committee, because
Mhm.
it could get passed around. And
Right.
there's challenges. Zoom would love it if we licensed everybody in town, but
Sure.
we
Yeah,
have-
also, because we have 63 committees, I believe, in town.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
And
Is
a
there
lot of,
isn't there something called a co-host?
Yep,
If you-
yeah, co-host. So if you want to make a co-host before the meeting starts, the person has to have a license as well. If you want to
Oh.
make a co-host once the meeting starts, you can do that. So I can make anybody here the co-host, and then I
Gotcha.
can leave and you can be the host. But if you want to set up the co-host beforehand, they have to have a Zoom license on your same account.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
might be worthwhile, doing something for, either the chair or, somebody else on the committee as a co-host, if it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to come up with a solution for those situations. We wanted to start with staff who have licenses because they do represent probably the majority of committees and are present for a lot of those meetings. So we're going to start there as the low hanging fruit, but then we're going to identify all the other outliers and find solutions to make sure that somebody at the meeting can take control if it gets Zoom bombed.
That sounds like a fun project.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, that's great.
Is it actually worthwhile doing something through Microsoft, internally on a staff basis? Do you use, the Microsoft meetings?
Teams, yeah, we use Teams exclusively. You know, it's funny. So a long time ago, the Zoom client was so universal through the pandemic that it became kind of the preferred way. And very early on, Zoom tied in a streaming service option so that you can enter a URL and push a Zoom, which we could then broadcast live. And so just with Zoom and our server, our TelView server, we can air things, whereas Teams didn't originally have features like that, and Teams clients were sparse, so people were using it on the web, and functionality wasn't there, and compatibility issues. And I'm finding that I'd say it's Teams is about 70% of the way there to where Zoom is in terms of market penetration, understanding, and the technology, but it's still has not reached parity. I still have routine meetings with people, whether it's they have a Mac or they have whatever, but they freeze, they glitch, they can't figure it out, they have issues, and then they go to Zoom and they have no problem. So I feel like to avoid a lot of those headaches and to allow for the streaming service integration, Zoom seems to be the preferred platform for public meetings.
For now, I agree. Sometimes we use Teams at work and I have trouble with my headset and this and that. And now it is easier to download, but yeah.
Yeah, you can now run it as a user without being an admin and stuff. So it is, I think they'll get there in the next couple of years, and that's definitely, I'm sure, their goal. And with our licenses, it's already included. So staff all have Teams. So if it, has the same security features and is ubiquitous in terms of client penetration, then it's an option maybe, but at this point, it's not there yet.
No, that's been my experience too with Teams in the past, is that, it just paradoxically, Microsoft has not been the ease of use champ. Julia, how is it going with Liz Rust and Sam Williams?
We haven't heard from them. I think maybe she'll reconnect after town meeting, but she did ask us to film a lecture, which we did at Newbury Court last Friday, where the Reverend Jim Sherblum was speaking, and his lecture was about 400 years of incarceration. And it was and so Liz asked us to film that, and it was very well attended. And we filmed it and we put it up on YouTube. But besides that, I haven't heard from Liz, but I expect that we will reconnect after town meeting.
I remember that Sam Williams seemed to be kind of chomping at the bit, you know, to
Mhm.
start doing some videos anyway.
Yeah.
Now they have something coming up about the cemetery location, don't they?
So the select board just approved design for some
The
enhancements to the rail trail to sort of sit and look at the cemetery and some markers and things. But if you want to look at that, it's in the packet for the last meeting from the select board.
Yeah, I remember Sam mentioning that, you know, they're just basically numbered markers, and they were trying to, you know, start matching up the numbers with the, you know, the people that are actually buried there. I guess there are some, you know,
They said it's
records somewhere that at least has part of that information.
right. They can't do that publicly because they've had a long-standing agreement that they don't want people coming to the individual graves because they had a grievance, you know, historical. Anyway,
Well, it seemed to be, you know, an interesting process, and
Mhm.
since the farm is still there,
Mhm.
I was thinking it's a nice place to go to lunch and say, you know, I'll pick up the bill, right? You know, $3.21 or whatever it is for lunch at the farm, the Fife and Drum.
Yep.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments on what MMN is doing?
Oh,
Okay, topic 6, mission statement. Jason, Julie, do you have, I have a hard time on my iPad here putting something up on screen, but I had sent out a kind of a one-page summary on options here on the mission statement.
Okay. Oh,
You can
Jason's
bring
got
that
it.
up. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, okay. Hold on, let me just grab my copy. Yeah, I've mentioned this a couple of times in the past, and you know, it's been at the end of the agenda, but in any case, what I have here is a set of options in terms of the PEG mission. And the starting point here is that, you know, traditionally the cable TV committee, and I think this is true almost everywhere that has a Comcast contract, that, you know, once the contract is over, is negotiated, then the quote unquote cable TV committee, in our case, PEG Access Advisory Committee, goes into hibernation, which really means that they disband because it's a completely new set of people that, you know, are appointed 10 years later to deal with the contract the next time. So, you know, that almost would be considered the default option. Now, what is different thus far in Comcast, in Concord's case, is that the transition which took place in 2017 was the move from MMN being a nonprofit to MMN basically being a department of the town. And the issue that came up there was, you know, something that required, at least in the eyes of Chris Whalen and partly in a way of, I guess, minimizing the criticism that started to emerge with the transition from a nonprofit to a town department, was to create the PEG Access Advisory Committee. So the question is, considering Concord's history with the Cable TV Committee versus the PEG Access Committee with its additional charge, should something different happen this time? And so the question comes up, if you will look at that option one, is do we disband after the new Comcast contract is signed? And first of all, probably it isn't something that's going to happen in the near future, and that depends on when the contract is finally signed. And I don't know, Jason, if you have any opinion on when that actually might happen.
My best guess would be this year. I think Comcast is eager to get it resolved. So I think that, 2024 is a good target.
Do you think anything, well, as you said, it maybe took a longer time in Carlisle because of the turnover in town staff, if nothing else?
Yeah, we have pretty good momentum and a good cadence of meetings. So my goal is to not let it fall between the cracks and keep moving. So I definitely think 7 months is reasonable to finish.
So it seems like, in terms of immediacy, that, the kind of the first milestone there will be, when that Comcast contract is signed. As far as the, next set of issues is concerned, one, of course, is the MMN oversight, based on the transition in 2017. And there was concern at that time, but I think one of the alternative ways of doing it, if necessary, is to do some provisions in town bylaws, that may actually also have an advantage in binding the budget and, the revenue that MMN receives, specifically for MMN, so it can't be used for other purposes. So having a kind of an oversight committee dealing with those issues, doesn't seem like the only way of doing it. And in a way, it actually would start reducing the count of the town committees, which I know the select board is kind of keen on doing anyway, so that, that would serve that purpose as well. So talking about the main issues, the MMN oversight, it seems that there's, more than, one way to solve that problem. And I don't know, taking these one at a time, does anybody else have any thoughts or comments on that?
Actually, my wife is on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and but they're talking similar about now that the trail is done in Concord, sort of there's no reason to have it. But there's parts of that mission for this trail that live on because it's still there. And so they're thinking, my understanding is they're thinking of, having the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail be added to the Transportation Committee because it's a form of transportation and shouldn't be peeled off separately. I have no idea where those discussions are at, and I'm only probably hearing half the story. So don't take what I said as anything other than, a quarter of the story. But, to me, it makes sense. It would make sense to see if there is a existing committee that the oversight portion of MNN could be folded into.
I mean, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't really think of one.
I know that's the problem.
Yeah, well, and I think to Vince's point about when MMN, when this committee started, MMN was a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were giving them a bunch of money, and so the oversight was very important because the budget
Sure.
didn't go through the town's process, and now it does go through the town's process, and it is nice for I think the residents and for the FinCom and for the moderator to know that somebody's looked at the budget. But I mean, the town departments' budgets go through the same review and scrutiny, but don't have a committee per se. But the finance committee looks at everything, right? So there still is going to be a hearing. There still is going to be opportunities for examining that. But the difference would be that there wouldn't be a group. The one thing I would mention, and this just occurred to me, is that, for me, outreach is really important. And whether there were a committee or not, I think Julie and I would love to get the word out as to what's happening in the studio. And one thing that I thought would be is if we could do a monthly show in the future that highlights the changes, the things we're working on, the things that are happening. And, I know Carlin has done a show in the past, but something where, we just kind of highlight things that are going on, read the news, changes, try to get people involved and excited about PEG access, and also then allow maybe a member of the public or the school community to help produce that monthly show and have the team or students edit it. And I think there would be great opportunities for that, and continue to do some of the outreach that get information out, and maybe you'd even get more people to watch the informative parts of that, because it could be done a little more exciting than our boring updates during a committee meeting. But
Yeah, by eminent oversight, I didn't just mean the financial
Right,
side of the
right.
house.
Understood,
I
yeah.
think there's the promotion side of the house. There's the, what's the proper balance of P versus E versus G. And the big one to me is the insurance policy. If something happens programmatically and somebody is not happy about that program and they complain to the town manager, you'd want a committee to be able to to address it and say, we've got people in place who that's what they do, rather than have the town manager putting them in a very awkward position of becoming the town censor, so to speak. So I think there is a role for some sort of MNN, and very concerned about the insurance, not financial insurance, but the programming insurance that the group like this provides some cover on.
And what would happen to the public oversight of Comcast? Just because we negotiated a new contract doesn't mean that function goes away. Is that correct?
No, that's something that, the town would have to assume, particularly, in theory, there's something like at least an annual review of, complaints that have been received about Comcast service. And we really haven't been particularly diligent about the scheduling of something like that. On the other hand, there haven't been really many complaints that have surfaced that way. Although one of the things that we don't really know is because Comcast, doesn't say is, how many complaints have they actually received and responded to.
Well, since we wouldn't be disbanding for 2 more years, is that about it?
Well,
Right.
at least a year.
So with so many urgent matters before the town at this time, I think that this should just be a conversation that we delay until the winter of 25.
Yeah, it is something on those issues that can. There's some other things that are related to that or not related to that may kind of be a more positive reason for retaining something like the PEG Access Advisory Committee, although it really would be an expanded cable committee.
But what I'm saying is, you've noticed the select board meetings, they're so busy that I would like to hear from them next, but I don't think it's urgent that we hear from them next on this topic.
And there may be some committees doing some morphing as well. So there might be a home as certain committees begin to reorganize?
Well, a lot of this actually, you know, is in theory going to be fodder for, you know, the study committee that town moderator has her article on for, which is Article 26, I think. I mentioned that later on. We'll get to that.
I don't really understand the connection, honestly.
Yeah, let me cover that when we get to it. I was just looking at my
Yeah,
list.
I'm gonna need to leave in 2 minutes though, because I do have to leave
Oh,
4:30
okay.
sharp.
So
Oh, yeah, I see.
I'm just asking that we probably,
Yes, as usual, we're getting on with it. Let
Yeah.
me jump down to near-term action items, you know, that I can see, as far as the mission is concerned. And we've already discussed the automated minutes. Just looking through the near term here, see if there's something that we should really cover at this point. There's some assistive hearing things that are going on, but that's not directly related to, you know, the committee charter at this point. It's just tasks that some combination of MMN and PEG Access have kind of assumed relatively recently. The Telview we've already talked about. There's some devices that, let's see, what do I have in my notes here about devices? Let's see if this is important. No, I don't think it is on devices.
Do you want me to stop sharing, Vince?
Uh,
Or is it still?
yes, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, there isn't anything more on my list that I think we need to cover in the next couple of minutes. I do keep getting bugged by Bob Andrews. So I think that one thing that, you know, would be worthwhile as a kind of an ongoing activity this year is to see about how the other venues get covered in terms of the assistive listening. You know, I mentioned that was something that Bob Andrews keeps bugging me on, and I said I'd bring it up. And, you know, in addition to COA, the town has, what, I think 10 or 12 other venues that have been listed as, you know, being used for meetings.
Vince Irwin has to leave. It's 4:30.
Right.
Yeah.
so we have to stop our meeting.
Anything else?
I guess not.
Okay, well,
Thank you all.
Yep.
You gotta take a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Irwin?
Approved? Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
yes.
Vince, yes. We are adjourned.